Hi there and welcome to a new tutorial on Blenderpedia. Today I will show you how to work with double-sided materials in Blender. So this is useful when creating a leaf, for example. A leaf has two sides. You get a front side and a rear side. So you have two textures. What we are used to only use one texture, the front texture, and then we create a tree and we change sometimes a little bit of the color, but we forget to add the rear side of the leaf because this adds a total different look to a tree. So it's a very useful tutorial when you're working with environments, so stay tuned. So I will now take a close look at a twig. So as you can see, this twig has different colors, and that's because you can see this side of the twig, this is the rear side, it's way brighter. So imagine that you only have this color, you have a different look of the twig. That's not the case in this part because we have a lot of front leaves and just a couple of rears. So if we separate these two, you can see there is a darker color for the front and a brighter color for the rear. So far so good. And we also have a different structure. So what you can do in Blender is putting these together. And if you stitch them very well, it looks very amazing. And the following example shows that. Because this is the rear and this is the front. And when you have, for example, 1,000,000 of leaves, and that's pretty normal when creating a tree, you get an amazing result with lots of color variation. And that's what we want to achieve. So before we start, I'd like to show you what you're going to learn in this tutorial. So we start with modeling a leaf, and then we add a specular and a bump map for that roughy look and a little bit of shiny reflection on the leaf. Then we add the back-facing node. It's stored in the geometry, and that allows us to combining these two textures. And I'll also show you how I create that twig, but that's not the main target in this tutorial. It's just the end process, the end product. So that's it. Let's go to Blender and let's get started. So this is the diffuse cube, and we don't need it. I like to start with a plane. So I remove it and I go to the top view and pressing N, and I want a background image. So I edit, open, and I go to my leaves library and I want that one. Okay. And I also want to increase the opacity so we have a clear look of the leaf. So I go to add, mesh, plane. All right. So what we need to do now is we need to stretch that plane and transform it so it has the looks of the leaf. I don't want to spend too many vertices. So imagine when you duplicate this 1,000,000 times, that will hit your performance of the computer. So keep it low poly. So I'm going to scale this, pressing SX, so we can scale it on the horizontal X, and pressing Z. So SY, we get something. Oh, I did something wrong. I think I deleted it, but we're still there. And now I want to add some edge lines so I can transform it a little bit. I'm pressing Tab. Oh, I'm doing weird stuff. I press the button that you enable all the layers, and that's not what I want. I just only want to add edge lines. I'm pressing Ctrl R. There we go. And let's start with 4. 1, I'm scrolling the mouse wheel, 2, 3, 4. All right. And we also want edge lines on the horizontal lines. Ctrl R, we go to the left, 1, 2, 3. And that's enough for now. So now I will select the left line, S, Y, and just scaling that. And we do that with all the lines. And if we need to add an extra edge line, you just do that. There's no really there is not really a guide for this. As long you have the shape of the leaf, that's what we want to achieve. So, and we also do a little bit of optimization. Ooh, that looks weird. That looks really weird. All right, so we're good there. Everywhere we're good. All right, so we're doing very good. Right now, the leaf looks very flat, and we want to have a sort of a curvy effect, because leaves have a sort of, this curvy look. So I'm adding an extra line, because I think that's worth it. And I'm pressing O for proportional editing. I'm pressing G, and we can see the circle. Right now, if I scale this upwards, it looks a little bit weird, but when I'm scrolling my mouse wheel, you can see we have control on the leaf, and I'm just turning that upwards, something like this. And I'm selecting these, and I'm just add an extra line, and there we go, something like this. And just select these. All right. And I also want to do something with these. So yeah, this is a very low poly design of the leaf, but it's good. So maybe we can turn off O, because I just want to have a more rounded look on the top. We're going to use a transparent node, so it won't really matter, but it's just for the looks. I also want to select these and turning O again, proportional editing, and scaling these down, something like this. So we have this result. Okay, and the problem with the rear of this leaf is that we have a lot of faces, and we don't need these. So I like to remove it. I'm pressing Ctrl Tab, go to the face mode, and I can select these. I'm pressing Ctrl X, and we have one face. There we go. So also a little bit of optimization. Yes. All right. I don't want to touch this leaf anymore, because maybe we need to tweak it in a minute. So we leave this for now. I'm going to the vertice mode and selecting everything. Let's turn off the image. It's only distracting. And I want to split my viewport. There we go. We go to the UV image editor. And I'm pressing Ctrl A and rotation and scale. Before I click, I want to show you why I'm doing this, because I can show you that I'm doing that, but why? So when we go to the top, you can see this has a scale of 4 on the X and Y, and that is a bit meshy. I want everything the same. So I'm pressing Ctrl A, rotation and scale. Now I have the right values. And now we're going to UV unwrap the image, so we can put the image, what you can see on the left, on top of this leaf. So I'm pressing U, project from view. You can see it's a little bit stretched, but we fix that when we put it on top. There we go. Make this smaller. All right. Okay. A bit more smaller. And we want to avoid that this is outside of the image. Okay, check everything, but I think we are doing very well. All right, the next step is, for example, add a lamp. So we see what we have in the scene. Lamp, sun lamp. We rotate it and make it a value of 3. Keep in mind, this is not a tutorial about lighting or making the perfect render of a leaf. I want to show you how back-facing works. So that's important, or else we spend a lot of time and we're not getting to the point where we want to go. So go for a render, and look at that. We forgot to add the material. Very important. Go to image, open, quality leaves, and there we go. And now we should have the leaf, but it's surrounded by a black border. And that's because we still need to add a transparent node. And I also want to add a translucency and a glossy node. We have to mix all these. So we do a little bit of node mixing. All right. So we go to the node editor. And I also like to add a plane so we can see the effect of the translucency. It's very important. I like to have one on the bottom. Yeah, just add, but it's not very important, but just for the editing. Make it smooth so we don't have that face blocky look. So we have this right now. So we go to add render. Yes. And we go to the node. All right, so we have 3 nodes. On the right, we have the output, the material output. This is the diffuse and the image that we imported already. So the first thing what I go to do is adding a mix node so we can apply the transparent node. So add shader, mix shader. All right, and add shader transparent. All right, and we put this one on top right there. And we grab the alpha and putting us in the factor. So now we have the leaf working. So this is a very basic setup of making a leaf looking normal without having that black border. And the reason that I put it on top is when putting it on the bottom, you get this result. Happens a lot, don't panic, just rotate them. Okay, so now we go to the next step, and that's adding the glossiness. And that's also the point where we're going to add the specular map of this leaf. So we go to add, we go to shader, mix shader. You can also duplicate this one. I'm just adding now a new one. And we go to add shader and a glossy. All right. Good. So I'm grabbing this one, the output of the glossy, and putting it at the bottom. And we now have a very specular leaf, and we need to tweak this so it looks more realistic. I want to use a gentle little bit of specular because I don't want to overdo it. So I go to add color and mix RGB. And we copy this image. So in a minute, I will explain why I added this mix. First, I like to make this from color to non-color data. And the reason is, let's select the specular front leaf bump. This is the spec, okay? The specular map is black and white. It's not really a color. So when it's set to color, it calculates it's wrong. So you need to say it's non-color data. And now we can put this color into the factor right there. The problem is that we do not really have control. We cannot say, well, I don't want less reflection or more reflection. And this is why the mix node is very important. We put it right there. We make this black, so we have full control on this slider. And when we make this 1, you have no reflection. Make this 0, you have full reflection of the specular map. So I will go for a 0.9 value, but whatever feels good for you is all right. I'm not going to say you need to use this value because that's ridiculous. All specular maps are different. But what is important is also adding a bump map. So that works together with a specular map. So I'm selecting the color node, the spec node, sorry. Yeah, just watching the time. So I go to add vector bump. And we also need to select the bump image. There we go, bump, bang. All right, so we put this in the height and this one in the normal of the glossy. Yes, and the magic happens when you tweak the strength. So I want to use a low value, 0.1 will do. Yes, and when we turn around, it's also not visible. The reflection is almost not really visible. And we can lower this one a little bit. A little bit. It seems like, yeah, there's the reflection. Just a little bit. So find out what works, but I just want to have it a little bit. All right, so the next step is adding the translucency. And now I will copy the mix node, the mix shader node. And there we go, and adding it right there. It turns out a little bit darker. That's because we need to put something underneath it, under this node. So we go to Add, Shader, Translucent. Where are you? Translucency. There it is. And we put this output in this input. All right. Now it's getting sort of a transparent. What happens? It's making the it shines white color. When a light ray is hitting this leaf, a white color will go through it. And that's not what we want. We want to sort of have a green color. So we select it and, for example, go to green. So you can see this is looking ridiculous fake. It's a sort of it's a green color. And we want to have the right color data. And now we select the data from the diffuse image and put that right there. So we have a little bit of green reflection on the white surface down there, although it's a little bit hard to see, it's there. So the translucency is doing its work. All right, so we need to do one more thing, and that is making this leaf double-sided. Because right now, we don't need this plane anymore. It has the same texture on the bottom as on the top. So we going to duplicate this, and we go to Add, we go to Input, Geometry, putting it on top, and we want to use this back-facing information, and we put this in the vector. All right, we're still not there because we have one more input, but we don't have any, we can simply do this and adding it there. We want all this information stored in that node. So on this point, I'm pressing B and selecting all the nodes, Shift D. All right. And then what is very important is that you change all these images. So we have the specular from the front, and we need to change that to the leaf rear specular. There we go. And we need to change the front image to the rear and the bump as well. There we go. Oops. All right. Good. And you can see we have now an output, a shader output, and if we get right now we have this, it's black, and we put this right there, and it looks green. This is back facing. This is double-sided material. It's wonderful, and I really like it. So that's the trick of generating this leaf. So we now have a lot of nodes, and if you want, you can group them to make it more so you can see what is happening right there. I'm not going to group it right now. That's not a function of this tutorial. But what I will show you is what you can do with this leaf. So I will show you how you start with making the twig and how to make that tree. So stay tuned. All right, so far so good. We have the leaf material, and when we hit render, you can see it's completed. There's a little bit of reflection, exactly what I want. So the next step, what we need to do is making a twig. So I will not show this step by step. That will be way too complicated or too long for this tutorial. I will show you the short steps that I took to generate it. So when I go to the second layer, right there, you can see I made groups from the leaves. 3 of them in every group. I joined these together, and the origin, the orange spot, is right there. And that is very important because when we put this on a twig, you want to rotate it. And for example, when the orange dot is right there and you rotate it, it will rotate around the leaf. And we want it in the center. So very important. I choose 3 leaves simply because I discovered that most of these bunches of leaves were, there were 3 of them. Well, you can see there are 2, but 3 looks good as well. Doesn't really matter as long as it looks good for the eyes. All right, we close this and we go to the third layer, where I have a twig. So twig generation is not that hard as long as you know the basic steps. So I start with importing a background image from a twig. I took a photo of it, imported in Blender, and I created a cylinder, mesh, cylinder, and by default it has 32 vertices, and decrease that to 8. Why is that? Or else it will take a lot of performance. So now we have to find it, and I will rotate it by using this magnet tool. So it's exactly 90%. There we go. And we scale this to something like this, rotate it, and the only thing you need to do right now is you extrude, and you just make this something like so. There you go, and make that happen. Takes some time, I think around 30 minutes, but then you have a lovely looking twig. So I'm not going to do that right now. This is my final result, and you can see all these spots. I want to attach these leaves on it. I will show you quickly how I did it. So I go back to the second layer and copy these, pressing M, and go to 3 right there. All right, good. So I grab these right there and rotate it. So you can see how easy that is. And just rotate it in the same spot. And then I lower this, something like this. And it's up to you how you attach this. So it can be something like this or so. I mean, it's nature. You have freedom to attach it. Don't feel weird if it looks weird, because look at the random tree. It's doesn't really matter. So in the end, you have around 30 or 40 from these leaves groups attached on this twig, and then you're done. And maybe you want to size some leaves, as long you think it looks good. That's the magic of tree generation. So in the end, you have something like this twig. So all the leaves are there, and yeah, that's pretty much it. You can generate trees and attach these on it. Well, now you can see a tree that I generated with the Groove 3D. That's a paid add-on. I will not go into that in this course. It's purely all about leaf generation, making the material. So this is the Groove. But what I will do, I will attach these trees in my course. What I'm going to show you now. What you will get there is you get all these leaves, the specular maps, the bump map, 2 versions. You get these trees. You see 2, but in the end you will have 3 versions. This is my course. It's over 33 hours. I now launched it for 3 months, and I like it. I help students with creating 3D environments. It's a lot of fun. Well, you can take a look if you like it. There are some sample lectures. So the great thing about this course is that you get one-on-one feedback from me. So when you get stuck with environment modeling, I can give you some feedback, or you show me your scene and I tell you what you can do to improve it. That's a great thing. There is a special nature chapter. It's where I help you with creating grass, trees, and creating that a simple demo scene. Pretty fun stuff. So as I said before, if you have questions there, you can just put them there on the dashboard and I help you with it. So very interesting. So I put all this content in my course, and it's available there. So I won't put this on YouTube because I have to store this on external servers. That's a lot of work, and well, you can find this content right there. It's 35 euros. I think it's worth it, but that's up to you. If you like this tutorial, I hope to see you next time in another video. For now, bye bye, and happy blending.